Hey, welcome everybody. We are back. This is Shoulders of Giants. Today we have the founder of Sergeant Clean's Car Wash. He's a veteran, he's a father, and he's doing a lot of great things in business right now. And I knew he was somebody that, we wanted to learn from. So we brought in Brian Krusz, again, the founder of Sergeant Clean's Car Wash. And hey, we're excited to learn from you today, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Chris. I appreciate being on here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, me personally, I drive through your car wash. I own a monthly membership to your car wash. I think it's a great business. And, doing this show, I've talked with some great entrepreneurs to learn, how they've got into business, the things they do to overcome those hardships. I mean, you got 6 locations. That's a lot of businesses running. You have a lot of employees. So it's definitely very impressive what you're doing. Let me ask you this, did you always know you wanted to be in car washes, or how did you kind of come about the business that you're in right now?
Yeah, it's unique. I don't think, I think there's a small handful of kids or, people growing up say, I want to be in the car wash. You always hear those things, I want to be a doctor. When I have a 4-year-old and 7-year-old. I asked them what they want to do. Both of them want to be police officers, so it's funny. But yeah, I never really thought I would land myself into this. So backing up a little bit, I had spent time in corporate America. I was in the Marines for 8 years, transitioned out. I was an executive recruiter for some short time. And then in 2008, the banking world went south. So I got laid off. I was a low man on the totem pole. And one of my good friends had a beverage drive-through store. And we teamed up and we went from 1 to 4 locations. From there, long story short, we were at a convention because I believe knowledge is power, and bumped into a guy, and he said he had car washes and beverage stores. And we went to a convention, fell in love with the industry, and we haven't looked back since.
Gotcha. So you kind of just fell into it. You got kicked out of the corporate America, just because of economic hardship. And a lot of people are actually going through that right now with the pandemic and COVID-19 and everything going on. So that kind of pushed you into your own businesses, ended up in, the beverage industry, and then kind of just parlayed that into car washes and haven't looked back.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I always think of that song by Garth Brooks, like Unanswered Prayers. You always you wish for these things, or you hope for those. No one wishes to be laid off. No one wishes to be let go. That's like the worst, right? And I remember that feeling still to today. And the gentleman who did that, he's a great guy. He's a family man. He was crying when he told me. And I still see him from time to time. And there is no hard feelings, because it was kind of that unanswered prayers that, I was let go from there. I get it. And then I transitioned into the world of entrepreneurship, and it's just been phenomenal. I'm a blessed man, and it turned out to be kind of one of those unanswered prayers. And things have been great, Chris. I couldn't be happier.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I like the idea that when one door closes, another one opens, right? Opportunity is all around you. It just depends on, if you harness it, you take advantage of that, that opportunity. Let me ask you this. Did the military help you kind of get past all these chips in your life, or how has that played into maybe mindset or attitude or some of those things that they instill in the military? Because I'm a veteran as well, as in the Army for 8 years. So I know that it's helped me a lot in business, just kind of keep pushing forward and keep going after the mission. Has it done the same for you, or, shed some light on how the military's helped you in the business world?
Yes. I mean, as you know, and thank you for your service as well, Chris. It really sets you up. I mean, I'd say from boot camp, right? Setting clear expectations. This is going to be tough. This journey is going to be hard. And then from my perspective, boot camp was 3 months long. So after that kind of claiming the title Marine, it was kind of that pivotal point in my life that said you could do it. And, I'm about 115 pounds when I went to boot camp. People are looking at me going, okay, whatever. And it's just, you could truly do anything, and it's funny. All the leadership principles, the traits, the things I've learned, always on the move, has really helped me, a lot of adaptability. You don't know what's going on with very little information. And then you're just here, and then you're gone, and then you're there. And it's helped me through a lot of the adversities. In the Marines, they use the term semper gumby, which is just always flexible. And that's what it was.
Nice.
And it's just been, a life of a lot of vulnerable times, and a lot of times I had to be humble and kind of take a step back. And a lot of those are the principles that I've learned in the Marine Corps, a lot of decisiveness, dependability. I'm dependent upon my team and my team's dependent upon me. Integrity, tact. And that goes a lot with like our candor. You're just telling it like it is, being straightforward, giving, candid, we call them cordial conversations. They were a little different in the Marine Corps. We've modified them so we're not drill instructors or anything like that, but just really providing feedback. And another thing too, I felt like I'm rambling, but the training, and as well as the training is paramount, and that's just kind of transitioned over to the entrepreneurship world, and you do this quite well, and you and your training, Chris, is it's just got to be to the forefront, because traditionally, and a lot of companies, not to diminish anyone's value of any company, they just look and you're hired, and Chris, okay, great, you're going to hang out with Brad because Brad's been here the longest, and you guys just work together. And you kind of make the sign of the cross and go, well, I hope Brad's good. Chris, I'll take care of him. And
Right.
it's just, it's sad that that's what it's come to. But I think of that from the Marine Corps. They didn't do that. There was professional training. They were held accountable, and accountability was one of the big things too from the Marine Corps.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense because, I personally know a lot of people that own smaller businesses, say construction, landscaping, and they tend to stay small, right? One person, three guys, crew kind of doing their own thing. And what you said there, the teamwork, the training, the working together, all of those things, I believe go into creating a big business because, well, you have to have a huge team and you have to be working together if you want to accomplish big goals, right? So, all of those different things have probably helped you get to these 6 locations and keep those employees when, other entrepreneurs might not have that same training and aspect of, keeping a team together, being a leader, and, just having those cordial conversations as opposed to maybe just firing someone or, things like that to be able to have 6 locations. So, let me ask you this, that's tough, right? Managing 6 locations, all them employees. I know you've run into some hardships, on the way to maybe getting your new buildings or expanding. What do you do when you get some of those hardships or when you want to get to a new location, but you can't figure out, how am I going to do it? What's your thought process behind it and how do you attack those situations?
Yeah, it's funny. People always ask, or they think just like I did, initially when we went from 1 to 2, that was okay. We could kind of do it. They were both in Strongsville. It was manageable. But when we went to 3, it wasn't 3 times hard. It was exponentially harder. It became 9 times harder, and 12 is 36 times harder. And it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, because we deal with people. And Chris, you and I are people. We're interesting characters. And it's very, very, very hard to deal with people from the consumer side as well as the team member side. We're just very fortunate that we've had some really good team members along the way in the 7 years of existence. But I always give when something adverse comes up, just like COVID-19, we were closed for about a week and a half. We gained the opportunity to reopen from our county health departments in the state. But I always think of the outfielder analogy, and my team knows that when something comes up, just take a step back, right? The outfielder in baseball, the first instincts or what he was taught as a child is when the ball's hitting the air, the first thing you do is take 2 steps back, figure out where the ball's going, and then go. You don't just immediately run towards it. And that would be the analogy that it resonates for me for my entire life. And the guys know when a situation shows up, or the girls, just hey, outfielder. And they already know, okay, which means let me take a step back. Let me think about the situation. What's the good, bad, and ugly? What's the worst could come of it? And kind of dissect it. And that's just been good through the years.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because if you run forward directly at the ball, it's going to pop right over your head. You're not going to catch it, and you're not going to know what's going on. I watched an interview with, I want to say it was Warren Buffett and Steve Jobs, where Warren Buffett says, on his calendar, he tends to leave it pretty open because he says that he thinks people don't take enough time to think, right? They want to fill up their, calendar book. They want to be busy where they're scheduled 9 to 9. And he's like, I probably got 2 things on my calendar for this week because I like to sit back, read, and think, and then I make decisions, right? Yeah. And then when you make that decision, like you said earlier, you got to be decisive, right? And then you got to know that it was a good decision and you got to execute and, follow through with that mission. And, that's one thing that's always helped me with the military and business, and, possibly you as well, is it's helped me learn that, hey, decide, make a decision, and then own that decision, and go after it. So, um,
And even if it's a wrong decision, it's okay. No one's perfect. We believe in just, slow progress. And as long as you're better than the previous day, than the previous month, and the previous year, you're good. There's no level of perfection here. And, as a leader, or how we train, our site general managers, is it's okay to fail. You're not going to get fired. We'd rather you fail trying, and then be able to look back, take that outfielder and go, yeah, I definitely shouldn't have done this. And this is where I screwed up there. Because that's all a learning lesson. And then be humble enough to share it in front of the team. Hey, I had this idea. This is how I went about it. Oh, it was a plane crash. It was miserable. It was no good. And even from my perspective, there's a lot of things that I've done through the years, but you see people are more attracted to a strong leader who could just make those mistakes and own them. And that's my biggest thing, don't make excuses. No one wants to hear I'm sorry. That doesn't do anything. That's just air. That's just fluff. Just say, you know what? Yeah, Brian, I screwed up. Yeah, Chris, I screwed up. This is what I learned. Let's move on. And then if you keep doing the same thing, then that's time for a different conversation. But
right.
9 times out of 10, it's okay.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And one thing I like that I've seen from you, I follow you on LinkedIn. I see the videos that you do with like your kids and how you're leading by example. The one that I saw that I really liked, I think you were doing the hopscotch, and you had to go like this crazy long hopscotch thing, and I think your message was basically, lead by example. That's not what you said, but I think paraphrase, that's kind of what I took from it. And you're leading your kids by example. You're leading at your, you're leading at your car washes by example, and you're being, the head of a team and saying, hey, I'm humble enough to own up to my mistakes, to teach everybody around me from my mistakes so that we can all grow, be better. And eventually, some of them young guys that come into your business, they might move on and they might own their own business. And the things that you've taught them is going to help them, grow and kind of, beat, all odds against them. And I think that's very important. And I think that's one of the reasons why I wanted to get you here on Shoulders of Giants, because I constantly see you being a leader on LinkedIn with your kids and your business, growing from, 2 locations to 6 locations. And, like I said, I drive through, I was at a car, I actually was there earlier this week getting a car wash here, right up from my house. The employees are great. They treat me right. It's just a great feeling all the way around. And you can't say that at every retail business you go to. You can't say that at every car wash you go to, right? And what that says is, from, in the military, we always says shit rolls downhill. Well, I think when you have a good leader and you're able to, lead by example, shit doesn't roll downhill as much, right?
Yeah. And I appreciate those comments, and I try to be, as inspiring, as much as I can. And I remember my grandfather growing up, as a child, you'd complain, right? You wanted 2 scoops of ice cream and you only got 1. You wanted 2 suckers and you only got, whatever the case may be. He would just say, wait 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And really what that meant, and I didn't understand it for a while, was think about it. There's kids that never had suckers, that kids that never had ice cream. There's kids that we are so fortunate and lucky. And I always want to put those things into perspective. And it was funny that the hopscotch one, I came home and I have a 4-year-old and 7-year-old. They were so excited to show me that the hopscotch went from our driveway all the way out. And my son, he just grabbed my phone and just said, Dad, I'm just going to record you doing that. And he did. And that was pretty impressive that he was there just saying all those encouraging words. I didn't say one thing. I got it. He just wanted to record it. And then you see my other son, join. And it's just, that's what I want to be. It's just that breath of fresh air for others around. Not that I am imperfect as they come. I'm humble enough to know that we've got an operations manager that without him, I would not be where I'm at today. To let him, relinquish all the hats of entrepreneurship, to give that to him. We actually brought on a chief executive officer who's been in business and in an industry for X number of years. And it's just, that was very humbling for me that I had to take a step back and put these leaders in place so I can learn from them. that I don't need to be, the only chief, in the room, that there could be other, other leaders, not the only chef, whatever analogy you want to use. And it's just, it's a lot of these soft skills too, that people in today's society don't have. Smiling, making eye contact, shaking someone's hand when we used to be able to shake hands, just those little things, Chris. And I'm glad to see that that's working. And I always think sometimes I don't want it to become all about me, because it's not. So I guess just a lot of that LinkedIn stuff or the other messaging is just more for an influence to say you guys can do that too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's what I get from it. I like seeing it because it just shows, that you're a real human. When you go home, you're being an example for your kids. You're not just, this one person at your work, and then you're a complete different person at home. You're just a business owner that's making it happen, that's living his dream, that's doing what he wants to do, and being a great example for not just your kids and your employees, but for other entrepreneurs that want to do the same things you want to do, right? Because, again, like you said, 6 locations, that's exponentially hard, right? I mean, you can if you want to be a small business owner and have a crew of, 5 guys, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to have 6 locations, if you want to be in Cleveland, Akron, Medina, everywhere in Ohio, or maybe nationwide, if that's your goal, then it's going to take a lot more leadership. It's going to take being humble enough to bring in a CEO, bring in different, chiefs or chefs or whatever you want to say. And, that's some of the things that I think young entrepreneurs miss is, they always think, I got to wear every hat. I got to be the CEO, the CFO. I got to do the marketing. I got to manage every little piece of the business. But if you do that, it's going to be hard to grow. And I mean, would you say that's true?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And it's funny because I always look at like the owner, right? And people say, I'm the owner, and it's kind of, to me, a little cliche. And I do all the hiring. So I was a recruiter in the Marine Corps. I was a recruiter for executive. I've been recruiting for Sergeant Cleans. So I'm pretty good at determining good people from bad people, let's say.
Yeah.
I make mistakes, along the way. I've guessed wrong sometimes.
Sure.
It is the interview, right? Everyone's going to say exactly what I want to hear. So finding the good ones, I always look at as part of our expectations is talking them out of working for us.
Uh-huh.
And with that in mind is just starting that conversation early on with them when they get hired, and looking at it as I don't want them to know I'm the owner. So when I call them, I just say, hey, it's Brian Krusz from Sergeant Cleans, yada, yada, yada. I want them to find out maybe the first day or 2 or 3 weeks, because I don't want to be treated like somebody else, and I don't want to be put in an ivory tower. And I always tell them, I'm here to serve you. And if I'm really good at training, if I'm really good at recruiting, then that's my gift I want to provide our company. That doesn't mean I need to sit in an office and watch other people do all the work. That's maybe one of the downfalls that people think when you're the owner, you just got to sit in the ivory towers and look down. And that's not the case. I'd rather look up and put a bunch of smart people around me, like Steve Jobs. You mentioned him. He just said, hey, surround yourself with a bunch of smart people and let them do what they got to do.
Yeah.
Get out of their way.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, I think that's sometimes what separates a smaller business from a bigger business is sometimes the owner just doesn't want to let go, doesn't want to trust anybody else with their baby, doesn't want to just kind of, just doesn't want to let go. And I think that's one of the, things that some business owners that want to grow have to learn is, hey, maybe I got to take a pay cut and bring in a CEO or a CFO or an operations manager or someone else that can help me grow this thing. Because, if I could do that, then in 5 years, then, my team will be bigger, we'll be at more locations, and you just continue to do that goal. Again, if that's not your goal, not a big deal. But that's the whole point of this show is, learning from people like you who have had to overcome those hardships, who have, built a big business in the area, and who have, a lot of employees that they have to manage. Let me ask you this. Do you have a goal on how many locations you're going to end up having, or are you just kind of going one day at a time?
Man, I would love to just keep going. We got a really great thing going. We're blessed in many ways. And my wife always, have you seen the movie, The Founder?
I haven't seen that one yet. No.
Well, it's I think it's Michael Keaton is the star. Is Ray Kroc, and it's funny. I always remember that scene where his wife asks him, and he's rocking and rolling on McDonald's. He's going up the stairs. They got to change to go to some event. And she said, when's enough going to be enough? And he just turns around and goes, never. And he walks upstairs. They continue on.
Yeah.
So my wife always remembers that scene. And she asked me, and you know what? We have a good, real good work-life balance because I've taken that step back and brought on very good leaders to surround myself to allow me to do that. So we're going to continue to grow. Maybe that's 15, maybe it's 20 locations. We're just going to keep having fun. Once it becomes not fun, then we'll see. But right now, we got a lot of momentum, Chris, and we're doing some really good things.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you're doing there. I know we're running out of time, so we'll end it with this. If there was one thing that you knew before you started at Sergeant Cleans, or if there was one piece of information that would have made your business life easier, what would it be?
Man, I think it's just about what you talked about there, Chris, where, and let me preface it by saying it's okay just to run a 5-man or 8-man landscaping company, or to have one ice cream shop and have 5 people work there. That is perfectly fine. I know a lot of people growing up that have made a really, really great living just having one business. That is perfectly fine. But I think as you grow, it's the real mentors and advisors that you need to do, and you need to get out. And that's the best piece of advice, is find some really good mentors and advisors that you could really sit down and have some good, crying, kneecap to kneecap, humbling conversations with, and make sure they're aligned. Make sure that you're talking to someone who's not that my father's divorced, but not that you can't talk to someone who's divorced, but just who gets it, who's internally and externally very similar to you, your likes and dislikes, the personality. Not that you need someone to agree with you, but your background needs to be very similar, that they can actually give you hardcore advice and tell you you're wrong, you're an idiot, take a step back. And, that was the best advice. And there's a lot of them. Is one of my mentors sat me down and he drew a circle. And he said, sit down, I'm going to use the restroom. We're in Starbucks. I'll never forget it. And said, make a pie chart with all your time. And at the time, I thought I was Mark Cuban. Chris, I had 16 things going on, car wash to this, to that. And I looked at that and I forgot here about my family. I forgot about my education. I forgot about the Warren Buffett, take time to think. And just really having a good mentor and advisor that really helped me get through these struggles of relinquishing the multiple hats. When we got our first marketing director, our first director of operations, I just thought, well, I'm the best at that, and no one else can do it better than me. That's so wrong. That is far from wrong. And I knew that, but I had someone to kind of punch me in the gut a couple of times, slap my face, throw some cold water on me. And I'm so thankful that I turned into those people instead of turning away, because it just made me so much more of a better human, a better father, a better husband, a better leader, a better influence. And just kind of lean into some hardcore, humbled back feedback.
Yeah. Honestly, there's a lot of people out there that say that same thing, that, if you want to, I talked with Brad Lee. He said that, you don't want to have the nicest house in the neighborhood. That's the way he put it. He said, when you got the nicest house in the neighborhood, that means you're not in the right neighborhood. You need to move and have the, poopiest house in the biggest neighborhood, because you need to surround yourself with people that are where you want to go, not where you're at. Because if you surround people with with people where you're at, then it's going to be hard to kind of have that outside looking in, fresh pair of eyes that can tell you, hey, this is not a very smart decision. You need to do this or do that. And, sometimes when you're wearing all the hats and your ego's fluffed up, it's hard to take a step back and say, you know what, you're right. And I think that's some very good advice, is to, be humble, learn from those that are where you're at, so that you can eventually be where they are. And, it's a whole cycle. Take that mentorship. And that's the whole reason why I kind of started this show, is so that I could personally get some mentorship from, great business owners like yourself that are, because I'm personally not where I want to be yet. I'm still growing, I'm still learning. And this is helping me kind of increase my learning curve while helping entrepreneurs out there. So, I appreciate you today for being on Shoulders of Giants. There's a lot of great information in here. I know the entrepreneurs out there that see this are going to have a lot of golden nuggets and a lot of things that they can write down and remember. So, Brian, I appreciate you for being here. And I'm sure I'll see you soon, because I'm always at Sergeant Clean's Car Wash. So I'm sure I'll probably see you one of these days.
Sounds good, Chris. I appreciate. I'm big on reciprocity, so I'm happy to be here and help and give back to all the people that helped me start 7 years ago.
Perfect. Well, hey, again, thank you. We'll see you guys on the next one, and you guys take care.